standing here, deep in the woods. The air is still. You can hear how serene it is. The sound of the stream nearby, beautiful birds chirping. It's October, fall is in the air. It's beautiful. But just beyond these trees, the modern world hums with traffic, deadlines, constant scroll of headlines. But out here, it feels as if I've stepped out of that noise into something older, quieter, more enduring. This contrast isn't new. Over 2,000 years ago, China faced its own kind of chaos in an age known as the Warring States period. And it reminds me a lot of the world we live in today. The Zhou dynasty had collapsed. What was once one united realm fractured into rival states locked in nearly constant war. The borders shifted every season. Villages were burnt, rebuilt, burnt again. Ordinary farmers never knew who would rule them next or if they'd survive to the next year. Philosophers fought with ideas as fiercely as soldiers did with swords, each claiming to know how to save the fractured world. But a few people turned away from the noise of politics and power and looked instead to something deeper, something steady, like the turning of the seasons. One of them, according to legend, was a court archivist named Laozi, the old master. Tired of greed and cruelty of rulers, he left the court riding west toward the mountains on a water buffalo. At the border, a guard begged him to not let his wisdom disappear. Laozi agreed, and in just 5,000 characters, he wrote the Tao Te Ching, the Book of the Way. Unlike the manifestos of his time, it offered no strategies for conquest, no new laws. Instead, it pointed to the quiet order beneath all things, the Tao, the way of nature. In many ways, we live in our own warring states. The battlefields look different, politics, social media, global crises, but the noise is similar. We react constantly to headlines and arguments, often to stresses we create ourselves. Technology has solved ancient struggles like hunger and cold, yet our minds feel maybe busier than ever. Lao Tzu's words still reach across the centuries. When the world grows chaotic, we can step into nature and remember what endures. So I want to talk about the core concepts of Taoism. The Tao, or the Way, is the unseen current running through everything. The rhythm of the seasons, the flow of rivers, the cycle of birth and decay. The Tao Te Ching opens by telling us that the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Right off the bat, it informs us that we can't capture it fully in words, but we can feel it. Taoism's lessons are like lanterns, enough light to walk the path without trying to pave it. I want to talk about 4 ideas in particular that continue to guide people today. Wu Wei is the first concept. It's often misunderstood as doing nothing. It really means not forcing, moving with life's current rather than against it. Think of a river. It doesn't strain, yet over centuries it carves valleys and shapes stone. Taoism suggests that our best actions often come when we stop trying to control everything and simply align with what's unfolding. In our own lives, it's the difference between forcing an outcome and letting things grow in their own season. It's a lesson that reminds you that it's better to swim with the stream rather than against it. One of the most popular concepts is yin and yang, and that shows us that opposites aren't enemies. They're partners. They're the same. Light needs darkness to be seen. Stillness gives meaning to movement. We often label things as good or bad, but Taoism reminds us that each gives rise to the other. A gentle person can be strong in the right moment. A storm can bring life to a dry field. True harmony comes from balance, not perfection, and nature is the perfect place to see that in action. Taoism honors the simple and unadorned. The uncarved block of wood, the empty bowl. These images remind us that usefulness often comes from emptiness, and that we don't have to keep striving to prove our worth in a culture that urges us to collect more things, more titles. Taoism quietly suggests that we might gain more by needing less. Simplicity isn't poverty, it's freedom. Freedom from the weight of what doesn't truly matter. Above all, Taoism sees us as part of the living world, not masters standing apart from it. It invites us to learn from the patience of a tree, the adaptability of water, the steady return of spring after winter. To live in harmony with nature is to remember that our well being rises and falls with the earth's well being, that every breath we take is a part of a rhythm that's been flowing long before us and will continue long after. There's a huge comfort in knowing that we're not separate from that rhythm, we're part of it. These aren't commandments or rules, they're gentle reminders of what we already know but often forget, that life flows best when we trust the current, seek balance in change, find peace in simplicity, and recognize ourselves in the living world around us. Today we strive, push, and react, often to stresses of our own making. Taoism offers another way, not to retreat from life, but to step back enough to see the larger pattern. It suggests that happiness comes less from adding more and more from letting go, from unlearning the frantic habits we've mistaken for progress. The wisdom that calmed a war-torn China can still quiet our crowded cities and restless minds. Lao Tzu wrote that the soft overcomes the hard, that the greatest leaders are often those who lead least. Standing here in the stillness of the forest, while the noise of modern life hums in the distance, I understand why he turned to nature for wisdom. The mountains and the rivers he once knew are still here. The way still moves quietly through them, offering balance in conflict and calm in the midst of chaos. Thank you.